What's up YouTube? My name is Josh Newland, and in this video I'm going to give you my thoughts and advice on college ID camps and combines. Alright, so for those of y'all that are new to the channel or don't know me, I play Division III college soccer. In high school I went to a couple ID camps. Both of them were specifically just for that one school, and then I went to a combine which was like 60 coaches from about 50 or so different schools hosted by another company. And for the sake of this video, when I say camp or ID camp, I'm talking about run by a school or a college, and there's either one or a few schools or colleges. When I say combine, I'm referring to, a private company or a third-party group that hosts a camp, and they invite a bunch of different coaches from different schools. Now, I have already made a video about how to get the most out of an ID camp. When you go to these camps, what you should do, and those sort of tips. If you want to check it out, the link will be up here. In this video, however, I'm going to give my opinion on it, some advice as well, obviously. And again, for the record, this is about college ID camps and combines. I'm not a professional. I've not tried to go pro yet or played semi-pro or any of those things. I haven't gone to any pro trials, camps, combines. This is about college ID camps and combines. And this is also based on my limited experience and what I've heard from other players as well. So first of all, probably the most controversial thing you'd say, just get out of the way. Is it a scam? No, I don't think they are scams for the most part overall. Sometimes you'll hear players and they go to a camp, or a combine or whatever, and they just say, well, that was just a total waste and they scammed me, and they just want to make money. I'm sure that the vast majority of coaches do not, even though yes, a lot of the ID camps and some combines can be very expensive, coaches, they do not have that much time on their hands to just go to a camp and just be there and not care about the players there and not pay any attention. As a college soccer coach who, even at the highest level, they do not make a whole lot of money and they do not have a whole lot of free time. If they're going to a camp, they're going there to look for players. They're not just there to make money or to just pass the time or to say that they have host camps. Trust me, they really want to find talent. Now, with that being said, I am also frustrated sometimes by how ID camps are run, by how expensive they can be, things like that. The summer before my senior year, I went to one. It was just for this one school. Again, I think a lot of this was just because of the coaches, the way they ran it. I emailed them for multiple times, months before the camp. And then when I found out and decided I was going, I sent them more emails to let them know I'm coming. And when I was there, I had talked to them, I chatted with them. And it was in Colorado. In Colorado during the summers, it can rain, every day. And it'll be for, an hour, and then it'll stop, and then an hour again, stop. And it's just really pretty crazy weather. And they just really weren't prepared for that because, I spent $350, whatever it was, to go to this camp. And then, half the time I was there, we were just chilling in the dorms or something because we couldn't go out in the field and we had to stay inside and just not do anything really. I think that was a lack of planning. I think a lot of these camps depend on the coaches that are running it. And, I didn't get any feedback after the camp. I thought I played really well, but also when I look back, I see there are some mistakes that I can understand the coaches would not be interested in me. But, they said, we'll send everyone an email, give you feedback even if we're not interested and things like that. And I emailed them after 2 and never got any responses. So I think a lot of that is just because of the coaching staff. They just never had an interest in me before, during, and after the camp. It just wasn't the best run camp. I did go to another ID camp, if you call it, a recruiting weekend is what they called it, at a local NAIA school my junior year. And it was free, and I think now I'm sure they probably charge for camps, but they're a brand new school, so that's probably why it was free. And that was a really good experience though, because I got to play with the guys on the team, train with them, compete against other recruits and prospects. I wasn't invited to the one in Colorado. This one I got invited. And I think again, a lot of it depends on the coaches that are running it. These coaches, Thought they did a really good job running it. We got a tour, we got to watch one of their games, we got to train with the team on multiple days. It was pretty intense. It was over a weekend, and one of the days they took us all to like Chipotle and they all paid for our meals. So I think a lot of it is the coaching staff that runs it, and this is my biggest tip. My biggest tip, if you're going to an ID camp, which I said before is hosted by a school and it's just for that one school or for a few schools. Personally, I would not recommend going unless you already have been in contact with that coach. Now, of course, there's lots of stories about guys that never talked to a coach that said, I'm just gonna go to this camp, and they just balled out and got an offer. But in my experience, just the way I see it, for these specific camps where you're not getting a ton of exposure to a lot of coaches or schools, I think it's best that you're already in contact with that coach. You already know the coach has some interest in you. I mentioned in other videos, coaches at the D1 and D2 level, one of the first questions they're gonna ask you if they're interested, where can I see you play in person? And that is gonna be at one of their camps or at a tournament. So if you already got some sort of contact with that coach, it's gonna help a lot at the camp because they're already gonna have your eyes on you. Whereas if you're just some random stranger, you're gonna have to do a lot more to impress and to catch their eye. So no matter what, email them, even if they've never applied before if you're going. Again, also you wanna be sure you can afford it. I think these ID camps, they can be $300+ just to go to one school and only get exposure to a couple coaches from one school. So when you're going to those, I think you should already have some sort of interest from that coach. Now, as far as combines go, these, like I said, when I'm talking about combines, I mean, a company or a third-party group is running it and they invite a ton of schools and coaches from all over, and they have it at, some park or somewhere. And these oftentimes are a lot more expensive than just the ID camps, but you also realize you're getting a lot more exposure normally. I went to one hosted by Exact Soccer. It was the West Coast Boys Academic 50 ID camp, mouthful of a name. And camps and combines and any of that, no matter what, is a good experience. But I think these combines can be on another level as far as making connections, meeting coaches, and even if you get nothing out of it, you don't really get any interest or offers, which I didn't get any interest or offers out of this combine. I got a lot of experience. The way Exact Soccer ran it, I thought was really good. It was very scheduled, just back to back, and the coaches were always willing to talk to you. You could go up and introduce yourself. They had Q&A sessions with coaches. They had another guy who would give, some talks about the mentality of it. The coaches there would actually coach you through drills, so you got to see what kind of coach they are, not just them watching you and writing stuff down on a clipboard. We had all sorts of different games and drills, and we had a tournament with scrimmages. It was just really well ran, a really good experience, and a lot of fun. I think it was at least $850, so like I said, this is expensive, but this is a good way. Again, at combines, I still think you should go email all the coaches, or at least all the ones you'd be interested in going to their school. Even if it's 50, 60 coaches, put your name out there beforehand, but even if you don't, this is a better chance of getting much more exposure. Some of the smallest combines, it might be 10 or a dozen schools, and the ones like this, you have 60 coaches. So even if you don't reach out to them beforehand, there's going to be a lot of eyes, watching players. There's also a whole lot more players. This one I think there's like 300, whereas the smaller ID camps, you're competing with like 30 other guys. So if you're going because you want to make experience and connections, you want to just get the most eyes on you as possible, I think combines are the best way to go. I think it's also a really good idea to do your research, look up, reviews of these camps, not just on their website, but just Google it, see what other people had to say about it. So if I had to break it down, I'd say ID camps are more when you have a certain few schools picked out, maybe later in your recruiting process when you've really got a few schools picked out, narrowed down, and you're already in good contact with those coaches. Then you want to go play in front of that coach, show them what you really play like, not just your highlights. And those smaller ID camps can be really good for making strong, solid connections with coaches when, like I said, you're probably later on and trying to narrow down between schools. ID camps are fairly expensive, but again, that's another reason why I think you should already be in contact with the coach beforehand. Make sure they're interested before you spend all your money to just go to one school, unless you're a really good player and this is the only school I want to go to. As far as combines go, Again, a lot more exposure, a lot more schools normally, but also a lot more expensive a lot of the time. But this can be a good one to do earlier on in your recruiting process, but you can also do it, like I did before your senior year. You have the potential to make way more connections with other players, with other coaches. You get way more exposure to get on a lot of coaches' radar versus just a particular school. But you're also competing with a lot of other players, so you want to do everything you can to go above and beyond, to prepare beforehand, obviously, get in shape, train, and also reach out to coaches. And while you're there, go and meet coaches. Don't just count on you're playing on the field to impress them. Go up and meet them in person. Like I said at the beginning, I don't think any of these are really a scam. As college coaches, you really don't have time to waste your reputation by hosting a scam, and can't really waste time. If you have a camp, a lot of them I do think are overpriced, and a lot of the times most players that go do not get recruited at all, but they're still there. They really want to find talent and players before other coaches can. So the ultimate advice is just be sure you can afford it, prepare beforehand, have an idea what you're going into, look up the camps. Like I said, if it's a combine, look up this company, make sure they're trusted, because like I said, I don't think they're scams for the most part, like the whole thing is, but there definitely are certain companies out there that are preying on people who don't know better. So just do your research, prepare, reach out to the coaches like always, before, during, and after. And that's really, my thoughts on college ID camps and combines. So if you guys are interested in playing college soccer, I have a whole playlist about how to get recruited, walk you through everything from phone calls, visits, going to ID camps, emailing, all that. Link for that playlist is up here. If you guys like this kind of content about college soccer, about what it takes to play there and the lifestyle while you're playing college soccer like I am, please subscribe. Also, don't be afraid to comment your thoughts, opinions on ID camps, combines below, whether you totally disagree with me or not. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you on Wednesday.